Alright guys, welcome back. Super excited about this video. I get to talk about a technique I absolutely love to do. And we're getting right into the heart of the time of year I love to do this. This is a technique that I actually was taught as a kid from my dad that used to fish a whole bunch. And he took me out, showed me how to do this. And from then on, I have absolutely loved to do this. And what I'm talking about is throwing a swim jig. For you guys that don't know, this is just like your standard jig, but instead it's got a pointed head, still got a weed guard, and this is a bait that you're going to continuously move. Cover water, violent hook sets, violent stripes sometimes. It is just power fishing, braided lines, super fun. So what I'm going to do is break down how I go through colors and trailers, sizes, a little bit on my rod and reel and line setup, and at the end I'm going to go over where I'm going to throw this bait. So to start it out, I keep it super simple when it comes to the actual color of the jigs. I don't get too crazy. I don't particularly care for the jigs you see in tackle stores that's got 2 strands of orange and 2 strands of blue and 7 strands of black. I don't get caught up in all that. To me, the most important thing is the shades. And what I mean by that is your black and blues, your brim colors, and shad. Now shad, of course, you're going to have a straight, I've got translucent colors like this glimmer blue. Then of course, you know, some glimmer blue and chartreuse accent. The only other white I've got is a solid white, and that's for just muddy water. But you guys can see my box is really simple. I've got black and blues, my brim colors, including just straight up green pumpkin. That one right there. I think the craziest one I've got in here, to be honest with you guys, is a green pumpkin. If I can get them unhung, is green pumpkin with a little bit of orange. That's about it. My shads down here, I've got some with just a little bit of blue, but that's really it. What I have found that works best for me is when I do want to change my colors up. If I know the conditions are right for a black and blue, and they seem to not be eating a straight up like black and blue trailer. I'll show you this one of the trailers I like to use. Like I said, this is just a standard black and blue trailer that would pair up perfect with a black and blue jig. And if I feel like, hey, those fish aren't biting as good on that color, and I'm like, they should be biting a black and blue, I might change to something like a green pumpkin or green pumpkin blue. This is Magic Craw. That's what I like to do. I don't, like I said, I don't get caught up in all the one jig that's got 17 different colors in it. To me, if you're going to experiment on colors, just experiment on the trailer. It's so much easier to maybe take a marker and put a little bit of orange on a trailer if you've got to, or put some chartreuse or some red. Whatever you think that needs to accent that jig, you can do most of the time with the trailer. So, like I said, I've only got three basic types of colors I throw. Black and blue, green pumpkin or a brim color, and shad colors. That's it. Going into trailers, I've got 2 main trailers that I throw, and there's one trailer that I sometimes throw, and I'll get into that here in just a minute. But it's either a chunk style trailer, like this one is on this white jig, or it's a full-on like crawl profile that you actually thread this bait on like this. The chunk style trailer I like to throw is the Netbait Paca Chunk, and they've got I believe 3 different sizes. The only 2 I throw is the standard Paca Chunk and then the Paca Chunk Senior. I believe, yes, this one is a standard size. It's a perfect, just all around good size. And then the Senior is just a little bit bigger. Just a little bit bigger legs on them, and I'll get into that, which ones I go with when I talk about where we're going to throw these baits. The other trailer I like to throw is the Zoom Z Craw, and it's either the junior or that standard size. And just like the Paca Chunk, the smaller one is a perfect size, don't get me wrong, but there are times that I do like to throw the full size Z Craw. And that's it. The only other trailer that I have thrown on a swim jig is the paddle tail swim bait, and I'll usually use a Strike King Rage Swimmer, or the Netbait Little Spanky is also a good one. But the only time I throw a paddle tail swim bait on my swim jigs is if I'm fishing ultra clear water and I really want to slow that bait down and get it deeper in that water column. Because a swim bait won't make that jig rise up in the water column like these big chunk style trailers or a Zoom Z Craw. These two trailers are gonna make those baits float higher in the water column. So the paddle tail, I only throw ultra clear water, like if I'm skipping this bait up under docks, like on a Highland reservoir, and I'm just slow winding it back to the boat, fishing down like riprap banks, and I want that bait to stay down more. Most of the time if I'm throwing a paddle tail swim bait on my swim jig, it's straight fluorocarbon. All these other ones are straight braid all the time. So weights for me, 90% of the time, all of my swim jigs are 3/8 ounce. That's just what I grew up fishing. That's what I'm comfortable with, 3/8. The only time I will change is usually during like the shad spawn, and when those fish are after like real small bait, I'll go to a 1/4 ounce. Something like this with a little bit smaller hook on it. I'll trim the weed guard up and put one of these small trailers on the back of them. And that 1/4 ounce, you can make it just, the action of it's just a lot more violent. I mean, it's just all over the place. And like I said, you can get a real small profile. But that's the only time I'll go to a lighter jig. I know that there's people that throw, 1/2 ounce and 3/4 ounce swim jigs. But the way I throw a swim jig, 3/8 does 90% of the work for me. And I haven't seen the reason to change that. So that's what I go with. Some of you guys might be looking at these swim jigs and not recognizing these at any of your tackle stores. And that's because I personally made all of these jigs you're looking at. My dad's made jigs for as long as I can remember. He taught me. And so majority of my jigs, I personally make my own. Pour the head, put the hook in, paint it, put a skirt on it. I've just recently, this past year, actually purchased a few jigs to try. I'm just trying to branch out a little bit and see what there is to offer. But these are personalized jigs, but I will put in the description my recommendation of swim jigs. So don't worry about that. And I'll put all the colors and trailers, everything will be on there. So before I get into where we're going to fish this, I want to talk about how to decide which color to use in what situation. The shad color is kind of self-explanatory to me. If your fish are on bait fish, obviously have a white swim jig. It's usually, I've always got a white swim jig on. If there is a swim jig bite, I will always have a shad color swim jig. But you have to pick your hues on the water clarity. The clearer the water, the more transparent of a color, like a straight up glimmer blue, that you want. As the water starts to dingy up, then I would go to something like a white chartreuse, like a glimmer blue chartreuse, something along those lines. And for straight up muddy water, I always throw a solid white jig all the time. So those are basically my 3 hues of swim jigs, from clear water to muddy water. And the trailers, Most of the time, my trailers stay the same. I throw like a white pearl color, or for really, really clear water, Netbait has got this one, I believe, yeah, it's a blue pearl hologram. It's a really, really good color for clear water. But most of the time, I just throw a pearl color on the back of my white swim jigs. I always have, it's always worked, so I've stuck with it. Getting into black and blue versus brim. From what I've experienced is once in the pre-spawn, once that water temp starts getting up 53, 55 and above, that's when that swim jig bite really comes into play for me. And I always go to a black and blue first. Always, the black and blue seems to get more bites at the beginning of the year than this brim. Now, if you're in really clear water this time of year, I would say have a black and blue and a green pumpkin color, you know, some type of brim color jig. You're just going to have to try both. And then after the spawn, it's up in the air. Some days they're just going to be wrecking a black and blue. Some days they're going to be on a brim. And it's just one of the things that you've got to figure out which one that they're on that day. And always go off of your water temp for the different shades. Just like your shad color jigs, if I'm going out there and it's after the spawn, and like say the males are garden fry, that is a great time to throw a brim color swim jig. But if the water is ultra clear, I'm not going to go throwing a really dark colored brim swim jig. I'm going to throw something more translucent, more lighter of a color, like a straight green pumpkin. But then if you're caught in some really muddy water, I'm going to go back to something like this that's got a lot more color, a lot more solid color, and it's going to be more visible in the water. And same thing with the trailer. If you're in more muddier water, you're going to want something that's going to displace a lot of water, like the big Paca Chunk Senior. Really clear water, go back to the regular size Paca Chunk or the Z Craw Junior. Swim jigs is not as complicated as what people make it out to be. You got three basic type of colors. You need a smaller trailer that's not going to put out a lot of water. You need a big one that's going to put out a lot of water. And you just have to pick which combination is going to work best for your watercolor and time of year and what those fish are trying to eat. Now, where I'm going to throw these swim jigs, my number one place is around grass. Gotta be. Around bank grass, isolated grass, grass mats, all of that. I've caught fish swimming this around wood and docks. Yes, it's great at times, but majority of the time I'm swimming this around grass. Once some fish move up there and are spawning and get done spawning, all of that, I'm throwing this swim jig up in the thickest of everything. And if you guys haven't heard about the Alabama shake, it is when you throw this up there in the grass, I don't just reel it back. I always am impeding action on that jig, and I constantly shake my rod tip, making this jig pulse in the water. It's a deal that those fish cannot stand, and some days you have to shake the crap out of it. Other days, they just want it barely moving. That's another thing that I can't tell you exactly which one to do because it changes. It changes during the day even sometimes. So you've got to figure out if you need more action or less action. That's just something that the fish are going to tell you. But every jig I'm going to be throwing around grass. I have ran into, on the clear bodies of water during the shad spawn, throwing my real translucent whites around seawalls even. That can be a really, really good deal for, spotted bass moving up there during the shad spawn. But like I said, most of the time I'm swimming a jig around grass. And I'm always going to have at least 50-pound straight braid, at least a 7 foot to 7'3" medium heavy, but majority of the time it's a heavy, and then like a 7-3-to-1 reel. And the rod, to me, is really, really crucial, because you want a rod that's got a real a stout backbone, but a really, really fast tip when you're shaking that bait. You don't want a broomstick all the way to the tip when you're shaking it, because you're not gonna give that bait the right action. So I like a rod that has a solid backbone, but in the tip, it's really fast and flexible in the tip section, that I can really put the correct action on that swim jig. I hope that this video helps simplify your jig color selection and jig trailer selection. I'll go back over basically to break it down. You got black and blues, you got your whites, and you got your brim color. Let the water dictate which one you go to and what the fish are actively eating. If they're actively eating shad, of course, throw a white. But like I said, look at your watercolor. The more visible, the more clear that water is, the more translucent of a white you want. The more muddy the more dingy and muddy water that you've got, the more of a solid color that you want. And same goes with the trailer. The more mud or dinge that you're in, the more water displacement that you're going to want out of a trailer. So I hope this helps. Swim jigs can be an absolutely dream to throw, especially when they're up just crazy shallow and you throw it over their head and they just come unglued, almost like a frog bite. It is just absolutely the most fun you will have when you have one of those really, really good swim jig days. So, like I said, I will put in the description everything I've talked about, all the colors and weights and the line size, all of that will be in the description, so you guys can drop down there and look at all of that. Please comment down below what else you might want to see, or what kind of tips you've got for swim jigs, or what else you might want to know about swim jigs. Please like and subscribe to this video, and we'll see you guys on the next one.